What if the Enclave survived in Fallout 76? Chapter 16. Year's End. The fragile flakes of snow glide tenderly onto the icy ground in a fashion unbecoming of the horrible world they are now a part of. Despite the uncomfortable truth that these innocent flakes could now be harbingers of death and disease, Swarford can't help but stare longingly at them, reminded of a time lost, memories gone, burned in nuclear fire. They will pay. Someone will. He turns away from the window, from his remembering, instead choosing to ground himself with what does remain. Breathing in the smell of warm smoky chestnut, looking around the room at the ornate wallpaper of the White Spring, now littered with cobbled together Christmas decorations, and the space populated with his officers, all exchanging well-spirited conversations, extra rations, and even what little could be scraped together to be considered gifts. Although Swarford tries to ignore the fact that most, if not all of these were recovered from those that have passed. But from his sentimental stupor he is awoken when from behind he hears someone call to him.
General Swarford, sir, would you like to join us?
He turns to see the call originating from Jackson, sitting around a table playing a board game with many of the other officers.
I don't see why not, but please, it's my day off. Give the title a rest.
Of course, Swarford.
Swarford. Again his name is repeated, but not by Jackson. It seems to be...
There you are,
Harper exclaims, striding into the room and throwing up a quick salute.
Why aren't you in operations?
He says, sounding genuinely confused, before looking suddenly more confused as he inspects the room around him.
And why are you all laying around?
It's Christmas, Harper. Harper doesn't respond, but rather mutters curses under his breath. Something about union holidays.
Honestly, I think you need to take a break. You look like death, and I can see you jittering like a chem addict.
Swarford says, now noticing in detail the bags under Harper's eyes mixed with sickly pale skin, and perhaps most alarming of all, the frequent rapping of his two fingers on his holstered pistol. Harper then responds, seemingly in complete ignorance of anything Swarford said.
Who's watching the walls? Who's monitoring radio traffic? What if...
And Swarford cuts him off.
I have people handling it. How many? Because I hope you know even at full operational capacity we are still undermanned. The robots are worth jack all in the snow, and the fortifications are at best a tenth of the way complete. They need rest. So do you. We're not robots. Fine. But I rest better knowing our perimeter is secure. I'm going on patrol.
Now hold on. You were looking for me, so what did you want?
I saw the new orders about rescue operations. Don't like it.
Yeah, thought you wouldn't. But it's necessary. We need allies. Even if we only buy a few people a few days, word spreads. Opinions of us change. Besides, the guys need training. We didn't exactly get the first pick of the draft. Out of the entire country, we have nothing more than what is left. Scavenging runs give too much space to avoid the world. Pick at its dead remains. We need to push them further.
I never expected such a conniving plan from yourself.
Watch your tone. I'm not dropping them in the dark. They'll have to deal with some mutated fauna or a desperate scavenger at most. But when the time comes, I don't want to leave everything to a very limited number of special ops units.
Well, you won't see me complaining.
Now that's a first. I reckon we can take it even further. I've been looking for an Op 4 team, and I think I found them. Real strange bunch. Their MO seems to be alternative tactics to say the least. But every time I ask for them, I get told they're out hunting. Maybe that's why they're called werewolves. At that moment, Harper's eyes open wide as if seeing invisible specters, and he jams himself in front of Swarford's next sentence.
Are you certain they're werewolves?
Absolutely stumped at this response, Swarford only manages to trip over his words on the way to a proper sentence.
What? Why do you...
But Harper presses further into the matter.
Are they werewolves?
Yes, that's what they called themselves. With this confirmation, Harper's face changes from fear to desperately suppressed anger, and is followed by the man cursing frantically.
Damn it! Out of everywhere, they end up here!
There's always a reason, right? Swarford jabs, admittedly immaturely but nonetheless satisfying.
Well, let's just hope that reason isn't damned luck. Listen to me. You stay away from those freaks.
And he takes off, leaving Swarford questioning and confused. But then again, there's not much about Harper that doesn't confuse him.
You still up for a game, Swafford?
He completely forgot about Jackson and all the others sitting not 5 feet from where he's standing. Yes, of course. Swarford slinks into a seat awkwardly and joins in on the fun. Playing, drinking, laughing. The thought of Harper soon slips his mind, and along with the rest of his officers, parties on for hours without disturbance. Only after the midday drowsiness has set in, when consciousness begins to drift away, does Swarford hear it, but no, he must be dreaming, until the sound of shouting next to him jolts him to a fully alert state.
Gunshots inside the perimeter!
As the officers begin turning to Swarford, he gives the order before the first man can finish a sentence.
Sir?
Go, now! The rest of you put the base on full alert. No one moves until we've done a full sweep.
Swarford sits tensely back down into his chair, watching as many of the officers rush out of the room, soon inversed as a number of soldiers now armed with weapons enter and secure the room. Each second that passes only seems to grow slower as it does louder, overpowering the hurried tune of shuffling boots and shouting. The rhythmic ticking begins worming its way into his mind, moving his fingers with the same impatience as Harper had been previously. Finally, he is released from his prison of situational ignorance when a flurry of gunshots crack through from outside. Not a clumsy exchange from conflicting parties, but a tight, controlled burst focused on a single target. And as expected, not 5 minutes later, an officer returns to Swarford to inform him of the situation.
General, sir, we've successfully eliminated an intruder. Pending completion of base-wide search, I believe we have already isolated and neutralized the threat.
Who shot? Swarford asks as bluntly as a rock.
The second instance was us taking down an intruder. The first appears to have been fired by General Harper at 2 other intruders. We believe they were all working together.
Harper, of course.
General Harper appears to have sustained a head injury. He's been transported to medical, sir.
Damn. Where exactly did this occur?
The west side of the base, at the cottages, sir.
Thank you, Major. That'll be all.
With his curiosity piqued, Swarford stands from his chair and proceeds through the halls of the resort to the main entrance, where he relieves one of the guards from his post and his protective gear. Although his experience with NBC suits is limited and dated, Swarford's methodical sweep over his own person ensures that every notch is buckled, every seal tightened, and every inch of skin covered, his face being the last to feel the air as the gas mask comes closing down over it. The shock of the constricted air takes him a moment to get used to. Too used to the powered respirators of the XO-1, it's easy to forget the effort it takes to breathe through a gas mask. But the laboured breathing soon steadies in pace, and Swarford steps outside, plunging into the cold. Walking through the icy gardens of the White Spring, the no longer visible snow-covered paths, it doesn't quite feel real. The heavenly flakes of crystalline white descending gently onto the ground, onto him, carrying their bitter winter chill, and yet he can feel none of it, only able to observe it through fogged lenses. Yet despite him, the falling snowflakes continue to dance. All the while his Geiger counter whispers slowly in its eerie language of clicks. They all want to kill you. They all want to kill you, it repeats. And Swarford wonders if he'll ever be able to truly feel the snow again, or is he condemned to live the rest of his life behind concrete and steel? Will tomorrow's children still be forced to hide from the sickness of nuclear war? Will they even live to see it? The thoughts in his head are pushed aside as the outline of the cottages and 2 figures cloaked in green come into view through the thin snowy mist. The 2 take notice of Swarford, turning their heads lazily, and as one of them begins to move their hand upwards, Swarford instinctively moves to return the salute, but instead he's greeted with a casual wave. Remembering the mask covering his face, he saves his salute and turns it into a wave back, following with a shout through the gas mask an inquiry of the location of the bodies.
Where are the bodies?
One of the figures points behind the cottages and Swarford motions a thank you before continuing on. Finding his way behind the cottages, he finds what he's been looking for, a man lying still on the ground, on a patch of red snow. In spite of the urge to turn away, he presses forth, coming to kneel on the red snow beside the man. Looking over the man, his shabby torn clothes, unkempt thinning hair, and the layers of filth hiding beneath chalked skins stretched to breaking point over his protruding bones. Had Swafford not known otherwise, he would assume this to be a long-past cadaver here from perhaps even the final day of the war. But he does know otherwise. That rot, that decay that is visible in every feature of this man, a painful reminder of the world outside. The decay that eats away at every facet of the world, be it skin or stone. The decay that grows by the day, undoing everything that is, that was. Why should he even care? Why should he care? Because he can't let go. He can't. This world isn't beyond saving yet, and he'll be damned if he lets it die on his watch. Not like this shallow husk of a former man in front of him. And still, after everything he's seen, he still can't answer why he's dead. No weapon, no bloodied knuckles or nails. Still, the possibility of something being concealed under his large coat can't be ignored. Swafford takes a deep breath through the gas mask and carefully reaches over to open the man's coat. But just as his gloved fingers are about to make contact, a voice from behind shocks him to his feet.
What are you doing, soldier?
Swinging around to see another man clad in NPC gear holding a cautious stance, the surprise subconsciously forces Swafford to answer.
Searching the bodies for weapons.
With these words, the man visibly changes from caution to attention.
Oh, General. Sorry, I didn't recognize you.
Swafford now recognizes the voice as belonging to Jackson.
We already took the weapons from the bodies. The other two just had some handmade junk. He was the only one that actually had a firearm,
he says while pointing to the body at Swafford's feet, and then pulling something out of his back pocket, revealing it to be a pistol.
I think it may belong to General Harper. The only place I've seen this model in this entire state is with him.
Yes, I suspect you're right. I better return it to him.
Swafford takes the pistol from Jackson, thanking him before heading back to the bunker, past the 2 sentries, through the ever-deepening snow and down to the safety of the bunker's walls, where he removes his heavy suit and proceeds to the infirmary. Upon entering the large room and walking through thankfully empty rows of beds, it doesn't take too long to find an unconscious Harper lying in one, his head bandaged and a nurse attending to him.
How is he?
Swafford asks, grabbing the nurse's attention.
Minor head trauma. He'll be alright.
How long before I can talk to him?
You can wait here if you want. I have other things to do.
He takes the hint and motions for her to leave. Swafford slumps down into the chair beside Harper's bed with the accumulated weight of the afternoon's events, and it occurs to Swafford that should Harper actually wake right now, he shan't even know what to ask him. He supposes the best place to start is the pistol. Pulling it out of his coat, he inspects it. An old-fashioned 9mm that wouldn't be out of place in an antique store, perhaps much like himself. He unloads the magazine, counting the rounds contained in it. 3 missing, but he pulls back the slide to show the chamber. Yes, as he thought. 2 missing. It's a good thing somebody put the safety on. However, when he releases the slide to snap back into position, this seems to violently resurrect the unconscious man next to him. Harper frantically looks around the room before finally landing on Swafford and feeling the bandage on his head, then asking as his eyes stare off into the distance.
What did I do?
From the sound of it, you killed 2 people.
Swafford unloads the pistol before placing it on the bedside table, where Harper's gaze focuses onto it, and with sudden realization he spurts out.
There's one more! Hey, easy. We got him. Apart from ruining Christmas dinner, everything is fine. But why don't you tell me what happened?
There's not much to tell. I was walking past the cabins. I heard something inside. When I went to investigate, I saw 2 intruders ransacking the place, so I put him down. Just missed the 3rd one, it seems.
Why'd you shoot him?
What would you have us do? Arrest them? Read them their rights? If the snipers and spiked fences don't dissuade them, then they're desperate enough to go a lot further.
I can't disagree with that. This is my fault. I've been too lenient. Production can't keep up with our demands. We should be able to find enough raw material that our vehicles aren't covered by nothing but tarps. Yet every day, all anyone brings back here is useless garbage, while the actually useful materials are being carted off by the boatload to build some hillbilly crap shack by every Tom, Dick, and Harry that thinks he's going to outlive everyone else. Well, that's it. First thing tomorrow, I'm getting a team together to jumpstart as many flatbeds as we can muster. I want those fortifications at least halfway done by the end of the winter.
It seems the weight of the world is finally crushing you. Don't let it. Hold on to your naivety as long as you can. Let me deal with the unsavory.
Swarford can't help but laugh at this supportive insult. That reminds me, I have something for you. Swarford plunges his hand into his pocket, withdrawing the contents and holding them out to Harper. 8 gauge, explosive, burning, yada yada. Merry Christmas. Even if it's been ruined for everyone else. Harper looks down at Swarford's hand with a hint of disbelief or maybe insult on his face, before accepting the gift. With production stretched as thin as it is, you're lucky to get even 2 of those, so use them wisely. There's also the matter of your payment.
My payment?
Now surely you didn't think Uncle Sam was gonna stiff you on the last 2 months' work. Swarford reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out one of the gold coins, flicking it over to Harper before gladly explaining. We finally got gold minting up and running. With any luck, we can distribute it in the next few months. Remind people who the economy actually belongs to. Now, there's just one more question I have.
Go ahead.
Those werewolves. If you want me without the best Op 4 team I've found so far, you're going to have to give me a good reason.
If that's what it takes. Truth be told, I've never met them, thankfully. But word travels fast when you have nothing better to do than watch icicles grow. Must have been the winter of 75 and 76,
he says with a reminiscing tone.
Reds had dug themselves into a cave system. A real big one at that. An absolute maze of twisting tunnels that they were using to ambush our troops. Chase wanted to turn the tables, use it against the Chinese. So he sent in the 62nd Infantry, 3rd Company, a penal unit. One of the worst if the rumors are true. At some point during the operation, maybe the enemy had laid explosives or maybe somebody got sloppy and hit a fuel cache. Either way, an entire mountain of snow came crashing down over the entrances to the tunnels. In the end, Chase was content with it being removed from the equation altogether. We'd hardly lost anything of value. Of course, that's what we thought. What he thought. By the spring, when the ice began to thaw, another opportunity came to control the complex. But it wasn't exactly just a tomb, as Chase thought. The accounts from the first team that investigated the tunnels are the most well-known, thanks to their detail. There are quite a number of dead, both Chinese and friendly, but a large number of the Reds' bodies throughout the complex appear to have been shot in the back. Notably, such cases were commonly without much clothing nor weaponry. Eventually, the recon team found what would be the source of this. In what must have been the Chinese camp originally, some of 3rd Company had survived the whole winter. It was obvious how. Piles of bodies stripped clean of all flesh. Although it was never stated in any report, a lot of people said many of the Chinese bodies in the caves weren't actually Chinese. Somehow, even some of the Reds were kept alive, shoved in tiny cages like dogs. I heard they even thanked the firing squad beforehand.
If I am to believe that all to be true, then I question why they've ended up here of all places. And further, what then will we do with them?
Leave them be, and pray to God we never need them.
So be it. They'll sit by until they're called. Now, I reckon I can still make it for Christmas dinner. You, on the other hand, should rest. We have a lot of work to do.
Everybody can hear us. Please send help. We have plenty of food and water to trade, but we need radiation meds. I'm not sure how much longer we can hold.
Chapter 17. Verirrt. Verirrt switches off the radio, leaving him alone in the dead silent walls of the bunker, nothing but his thoughts to keep him company. Finally, he reconciles with his situation and pulls his voice recorder out, inserting a blank holotape into it.
Mission report. March 3rd, 2078. SAR-052. Failure.
His eyes dart to the former residents of the bunker, still clutching each other in their arms.
Shelter remains stocked with supplies. Rations, miscellaneous. No medical, no firearms. See pictures included. Recommend immediate salvage team.
He stops the recording, returning the holotape and the recorder to his webbing before taking out his camera, snapping shots of every corner in the single-roomed bunker. Putting away the camera, he walks over to the bodies laying against the wall, feeling a disappointing kinship with them. All three of them, trapped at the end of the world. Home could be just over the horizon, but it may as well be a million miles away. None of them will likely ever see it again. At least they had each other, he supposes. Then again, these two could be complete strangers, drawn together only by circumstance, or maybe fate, so that neither may be alone in the end. It's all anyone can hope for, really. Verirrt kneels down, searching the pile of beer bottles next to them until he finds one sealed, and toasts to his new friends. Downing the drink in one go, and leaving the tiny bunker, emerging out of the concrete tomb into the Appalachian wilderness, the deadly winter snow still falling, still overcasting its spell of darkness on the world, but Verirtt's attention is stolen by the waning sun. He takes a deep breath he knows he shouldn't. It's all he can do to fight the feeling of being suffocated from the outside world, before he unclips his gas mask and seals it over his face. He looks at his watch. Damn, he lost track of time. It'll be a trek to get back to the base before night, and as the slow ticking of his Geiger counter alerts him to yet another complication, he turns behind him to see a tsunami of sickly green poison eclipsing the sky. Another radiation storm, when one breath was already too much. Wasting no time, he starts off in the direction of the base. The uneven terrain of the Appalachian wilderness can be treacherous at the best of times, but when fighting darkness and the ticking of the clock, it's best not to think about. The only thing that passes through Verirtt's mind is the exact position of every step, one after another, for hours, nothing but every step taken through the wooded and rocky terrain. Even as the lenses of the mask fog over, obscuring not only his compass but the path ahead, he wades through the sea of toxic green fog, and as the darkness creeps in ever closer, his hands find themselves moving closer and closer to his rifle. The chance of running into something actively hostile this far out is low, but he'd much rather be scared by shadows than dead to an unseen killer. But soon it's not the shadows that worry him, rather the sounds. Through his own heavy breathing and the thundering of the storm, something is just barely audible, to the degree that he could almost mistake it for his imagination. Almost. Through immense effort, he reduces the impact of his feet on the ground to where they are almost silent. The sounds still remain. Footsteps, light, small ones. Verirrt halts, snapping behind him and sweeping with his rifle at the open space around him. Nothing. And yet, something, somewhere. The gentle rustle of a bush near him pulls his rifle barrel directly towards it. Struggling through the fog of the mask and the dark haze of the storm, he looks into the shrubbery. Something, getting ever so slowly larger through the ocean of darkness. Yellowish white orbs with black cores, eyes staring at him, and teeth. He dives backwards onto the ground as the fangs fly past him, and he sprays a burst of lead into the attacker before clawing himself off the ground and sprinting to the nearest tree. Running up against the side of the tree, he swings his arm out to grab the nearest branch and pulls himself up further, until he finds himself on a branch that feels sturdy enough. Praying to God the branch holds, he adjusts his body to sit securely over it, and he looks down. The pack of wolves snapping at him from the forest floor, joined by the one he shot, leaking blood, but like all the rest, continuing to scratch at the tree in an attempt to reach him. Verirrt takes his rifle, steadies himself on the branch, and sprays down into the pack. 3 of the wolves hit the ground limp, and the rest run off whimpering. The first one he injured struggling to follow its brethren. Deciding that it would be more cruel to let the creature go, he takes one last shot at the slow-moving target, dropping it to the ground. For 10 more minutes he waits, patiently and dead quiet in the tree. When all remains the same for this time, Verirrt reloads his rifle and descends from the tree carefully, the bodies lying at his feet. A second of difference and he would be dead now. Damn beasts. They're a bad omen. But curiously enough, all of them seem to be sporting healthy coats of fur, minimal radiation exposure. He picks up the smallest one and throws it over his shoulder. It's still surprisingly heavy, but it should only be a mile or two back to base. And his assertion is correct. A mile away to the next hill, and he can see the scattered and dim lights of Fort White Springs guard towers. Setting the wolf carcass down, he pulls out his flashlight and points it at the closest tower, inputting the code carefully. One quick flash, 2 long flashes, followed by another 2 quick flashes. When his code is mirrored back to him by the tower, he picks up the carcass, turns his light on again, and proceeds down to the front gate, where the guards shine their own lights in his face, suspiciously asking,
"You're out late, Warden."
I had a bit of trouble with the wildlife.
He brings their attention to the dead animal over his shoulder.
"Nice kill. I hope you put a few more down as well. All right, you're clear. Captain Schneider will be waiting."
Verirrt gives the guards a thankful nod and lugs the beast on his shoulder the final way of the journey, into the entrance of the main building, into the makeshift checkpoint within the lobby where Captain Schneider is standing expectantly.
"There's my best warden,"
he says sardonically.
I didn't know you liked me that much, sir.
I said best, not favorite. Especially when you bring rotting corpses into my office.
He growls as Verirrt lays the kill on a table next to them.
How am I the best, sir?
The confusion quite visible in his words.
It's hardly saying much, son. If my old platoon were here, well, it would be a lot different. But they aren't, and it isn't. The old guard are all resting at Arlington now. Maybe some are still out there, in the burned remains of China. Maybe they'll find their way home someday. But until that day, I'll just have to deal with you lot of chest-hairless children.
Taking a long pause to let the words stew, he continues.
Do you want to know why you're the best warden I have, Corporal? I've seen countless numbers struggle to learn one simple thing over the years.
Now a sinister smirk begins to grow on the captain's face.
But you have it naturally. That killer instinct. That bloodthirsty haze that comes over you when your life's on the line.
He points to the dead wolf on the table.
That beast there. I'm sure that would have killed far too many others. At least, if they were crazy enough to go out on their own like you.
I work better alone, sir.
Verirrt lies.
Don't be mistaken, Verirrt. I know your mission record. Not a single rescue, but always plenty to scavenge. Quite odd, don't you think? I'm sure today's no different, is it?
He says while reaching out his hand for Verirrt to place the mission report holotape on. Verirrt can do nothing but hand over the tape in conceding silence that Captain Schneider takes as confirmation. He pats Verirrt on the back heavily with sickening approval.
Now just stop pretending you're not a killer.
And the captain waves him off. Free to his own devices, he heads straight to his quarters, falling into bed and further into the escape of a deep sleep. The room around him slowly disappears, giving rise to the dark matter entrenched within his mind. An apparition appears before him. His home, his family, him, dead together. One last broken promise, a chasm at his feet, so deep the bottom sinks into darkness, the unpierceable veil of reality standing between him and absolution, and peace. One step forward and he falls. Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe it's just an illusion. They all call to him, but he turns away again. He always does. Turning to the endless bounds of barren wastes, standing alone at the end of the world again, he walks away from them, into the world. The awakening comes suddenly, with the sound of knocking on his door. To his annoyance, the door opens to reveal Captain Schneider once again.
There's a briefing in the theater in 30 minutes. Be there.
And he takes his leave almost as quickly as he appeared without another word. After 30 minutes of morning routine and breakfast, Verirrt is sat down in the theatre with a crowd of other men, all seemingly unaware as to why they've been called. But their wonders are soon remedied when one of the officers, one of the many that Verirrt isn't familiar with, takes the podium.
You may all be wondering why you're here. Because this country that you have fought for, bled for, it faces a crisis. A crisis of loyalty, of vision. I entrust to all of you the duty of being the sword that swings at these enemies, both foreign and domestic, and the shield that protects our very way of life. The Chief of Police in Morgantown has asked for our help in maintaining control of the city. You have already been divided into teams. The first row of you will be Team Golf. You are tasked with securing Grafton Dam and defending it against any and all threats. The second row will make up Team Mike. Your job is to reinforce local police in peacekeeping efforts within the city itself. The third row will be Team Romeo.
They'll be on standby to assist where needed.
Verirrt notes that he happens to be sitting in the third row. Although a few certainly could pass as wardens, most of the men in the third row have an older, experienced look around them.
Be warned. As well as the usual threats, local police have been clashing with VTU students excessively as of late. These people may look like our fellow countrymen, but do not be fooled. Any one of them could just as easily be a godless communist worthy of nothing but swift justice. If you perceive a threat, do not hesitate. At 0800 tomorrow, you will be transported by air to your respective mission locations. Teams Golf and Mike are dismissed. Team Romeo, I'd like to go over your responsibilities further.
Verirrt watches as the men in front of him all get up to leave one after another, and only after the doors are sealed for a good while does the officer speak.
Now listen up. I won't repeat myself. Your mission is in fact not to stand by as support, but rather strike at the heart of this scourge of anti-patriotic activity. Scouts have confirmed multiple sightings of red Chinese communists. We believe they're operating underneath the Mama Dolce's food cannery. You are to capture or kill every last one of them. Do not mention a word of this to anyone outside this room. Do I make myself clear?
In unison, the men around Verirrt sound an affirmative, yes sir, and he wonders what the hell he's gotten himself into.
This one's for all you cowboys out there that think you can interfere with our operations. This is your only warning. Stay out of our way, or we will kill you.
Chapter 18. Phoenix. Harper rubs the sides of his temple as the subject of discussion loops around for what must be the third time. Try as they might, the table of generals can't agree on the dispersal of their limited forces. This meeting of the senior general staff has yielded nothing in the way of progress, with the three major generals, himself, Garrett, and Moore, merely passing the ideas around the table until they return to their original flawed state. All the while, Lieutenant General Swarford stands apart from the table, looking down through the glass into the command center. Whether sincerely lost in thought or rather just looking the part to hold the air of superiority over the others, Harper does not know.
It doesn't seem feasible to continue with the Morgantown plan, given our current limitations in manpower.
The plan is good, and if it isn't, we have to make it. We may not get another chance at this.
Harper's right, we're being asked for help. If we don't act now, there might not be a city left to control.
How can we rectify the number of troops we'll have to divert to control an entire city?
We do have a surplus of salvaged robots that could bolster our forces. We just need to ensure they're working.
Autonomous units can only supplement manpower at a minor scale, not replace it. Not to mention their effectiveness is less than half in this snow.
It'll be tight, but if we get more robots on guard duty here, along with the support from Morgantown Police, we can make it work.
Such a position would be too fragile. We've already devoted over half our scavenging operations to food alone, and if this winter continues any longer, I would rather not think about it.
In other words, no matter what angle we play it, we come up short.
The area around Watoga was rich in farmland. It may be less affected by the snow. If nothing else, the city should be left untouched. As for the manpower problem, perhaps it's time we started training up new recruits again.
Watoga's a no-go zone. Best we can tell, the automated services were infected by a virus. Everything from the police to the bus schedule will try to kill you.
I'm afraid the recruitment plan doesn't hold together much better. Now, I'm sure we wouldn't want open day at our little enclave here. It would be better to simply expand our effort of taking ex-service members and others with usable skills. Besides, we can't authorize new recruits in the system. That shuts them out from a significant amount of support resources.
Could we use the McClintock training camp? That facility was fully automated before the Long Midnight.
Long Midnight. Harper can only assume it's another term for the burning of the world. Everyone seems to call it something different.
I wish we could. but it's practically in spitting distance of Charleston. We still can't be certain of the intentions of the emergency government or the so-called responders, but given they've aligned themselves with the deserters at Wade Airport, we'd be hard-pressed if conflict arose.
We have to force their hand. They need a reason to follow us.
I agree. Any God-fearing society requires trade. We know what we want from them. Loyalty. All we need to figure out is what they need.
We still need them to use our currency. What if we retake control of the automated sectors, mining or logging? We could leverage that for barter.
Gentlemen, I'm sensing a pattern here. All the tools for our ascendancy are laid out in front of us, yet they remain unobtainable. These machines lie ready to rebuild this nation, but they do not recognize us as their masters.
That leaves only one option then. If someone could break in and just take control of the most advanced city on the face of this planet. Our potential to do the same should be complete and assured. The rules of engagement be damned. We must maintain the ability to brute force our way into any and all networks we require.
What of our own networks? The automated promotion system? The personnel registry?
I think it's clear by now that Command has little interest in helping us. Or in other words, we're on our own. If our own hardware is working against us, then we must take every opportunity to bring it under control. The promotion system, the registry, even the silos. Why should anyone dictate to us the rules we follow when we're the ones on the front line?
You would propose high treason.
At this point, Swarford finally interjects into the conversation.
I agree. We should not be beholden to the laws of the politicians and bureaucrats, but we are beholden to the laws of God and of man. Nuclear weapons are an affront to that.
But would it not mean the staff could be released from their veritable prison, while the silo would still maintain the complete readiness required?
Yes, we could effectively shut down the silo without Command knowing.
Now it's time for Harper to interject.
Despite your complacency with the idea of casting off the chain of command at your whim, you still fail to present a valid method to accomplish this, and you will continue to fail because it remains impossible.
He growls at everyone in the room.
Really? Modus!
As the call goes out, the walls of the room echo back their response.
Yes, General?
Have you been listening to our conversation so far?
I'm always listening, General.
Very comforting. Then what is the feasibility of you being able to force control over the other machine systems?
Unlikely. Such action would require extensive training on subject.
Then how long would it take?
Prediction unreliable. Nationwide data loss incalculable. Mission parameters could exceed value of 365 days.
That is time we do not have.
I'm sure the eggheads can figure out a way to speed that up if we just...
No! I will not stand by while we commit an act of treason against this country!
God damn it, Harper! Do you really think they care what we do with that system? No one will even know what we've done.
We will.
If it means we are that much closer to victory, I can live with it.
That's always how it starts.
Is this really the hill you want to die on?
No. But I will not allow you to interfere with the silo.
Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I doubt even with a full research team on it that we'll be able to achieve anything of the sort in haste.
We better hope it's possible. The food stores in Watoga may be the only thing that can save us if this winter continues on any longer.
All we can do is hope. You're all dismissed.
As Harper stands and walks down to the military wing, he finds himself turning out into the halls rather than returning to his post. Something is pulling him away, the old ghost stirring in his mind, the unquenchable urge to know. It leads him back to his quarters, back to uncertainty when looking at his bookcase as the ghost calls to him. He moves aside the rows of books to reveal the hard disk drive. He pulls it out, holding in his hands what could be the key to salvation or extinction, the child of a dead god.
Lindsay, are you reading me?
Yes, Captain. It's good to hear your voice.
It's about time I told you why I needed someone in Appalachia. There's a West Tech research facility there. You have to listen to me, Lizzie. That facility, it's another Mariposa. If you're still not convinced that I'm right, find West Tech, and you'll find your answers.
Captain, you should know. We've been hearing things on the radio. It sounds like the military here is still intact. Maybe even command. We've all been thinking that it might be time to join them.
No, you can't trust them. Maybe they are willing to see reason, but you have to promise me you'll go to West Tech before you start taking orders again.
Okay, Captain. I promise.
Chapter 19. Red Terror. The rotor blades thunder in Verirrt's ears as the snowy landscape flies by underneath him. From the view in the Verirrt, the world is deceptively peaceful. You could almost be convinced he wasn't in hell if he didn't feel the corners of his smile push into the rubber of the gas mask sealed over his face. He grips his rifle and leans back against the wall of the Verirrt, trying in vain to get into the state of mind appropriate for the task ahead of him.
What does an operator or a career jarhead think about at times like this? How do they reconcile with what they have to do? He supposes he could just ask one of them. He's surrounded by them after all. Do they have faith their actions serve a greater purpose? Do they actually enjoy it? Or are they as simple as him? They do what they have to. Always have, always will. For better or worse, his life has always been set out for him. Is it fate, destiny, or something more simple? Suddenly he feels a firm hand on his shoulder. Turning away from his inner thoughts, he sees one of the many perfect replicas of himself, clad in full combat gear and gas mask to match. He gives Verirrt the sign for 3 minutes to land. Looking through the front windows of the Verirrt, the city is now clearly visible in front of them. Verirrt gives a clear thumbs up and now looks around to see the rest of the perfect clones double-checking their weapons and seals. As the Verirrt soon passes over the city, the soldiers belonging to one of the other teams are visible, dismounting from their own Verirrt near where a group of people are gathering in front of police. Not a minute later, the bird Verirrt is sitting in slows to a halt in midair, before descending gracefully onto the roof of the food processing plant, whereupon he follows the rest of the men as they rush out of the bird and begin moving hastily down the stairs, scanning the visible windows and doorways. From here, the men jumping out of the second Verirrt on the ground floor can be seen sprinting towards the plant with their weapons up. Verirrt's fire team quickly reaches the end of the catwalk where the door into the building sits. As the men stack up against the wall, Cross, the T-60 operator, opens the door with typical Devil Dog subtlety by kicking it off its hinges, allowing everyone to flood inside after him. The rifles of the soldiers sweep around the room in perfect synchronicity, but they do not land on anything. Pushing further into the plant's main factory floor where the second fire team is already waiting, they reaffirm the building is clear. Match, the squad leader, directs the group of 5 and 5 more out the back of the building. The back of the building that houses nothing but a large sewer pipe along its exterior seems inconspicuous at first, but it doesn't take long for the large number of alert soldiers to locate their target, what looks to be a sheet of metal patched over the pipe. Match orders the 2 Marines, Cross and Alvarez, to make an opening. The 2 T-60 operators plunge their fists through the metal-like gelatine and tear open its skin with machine-powered strength to reveal the inside of the pipe, bone dry. Match pokes his head through the gaping hole, looks around inside, then motions for the Marines to take point. As the 2 power armor suits squeeze into the small space, the rest of the men sit outside with an experienced calm that is foreign to Verirrt. But he's still sure their ears are as alert as his. The inside of the passage not visible to him, he relies on the sound to tell him the story. The sound of hinges breaking as a door is once again kicked from its frame echoes back to him, followed by what sounds like alarmed shouting in Chinese, the harsh modulated voices of the Marines shouting back at them in order of surrender, then trailed by gunfire, and the order from Match to deploy their secret weapon.
Fade! Malice! Gas it!
The 2 men in question follow the signal and rush into the passage, pulling their grenades from their vests as they do. Seconds later, the gunfire wanes, replaced by aggravated coughing. Once the white gas becomes visible, snaking its way out of the pipe, Match orders everyone in with haste. One after another, the group of soldiers outside rush their way into the unknown that dwells beneath. Following their lead, Verirrt runs in the passage after the rest, gripping his rifle tight as he plunges into the cloud of gas, finding his way through the door into the first room. Looking around the veritable nightmare, the sparse dim lights illuminating the gas as a haunting mist, the shape of imposing masked figures bashing down spluttering foes with the butts of their rifles, the shadows of hulking power armor illuminated and cast through the ocean of fog by sporadic flashes rippling light through the room. He can only stand there in complete awe of his surroundings until a sharp yank forward brings him crashing back to reality. Recovering from his stumble as he is pulled, he propels himself into and up against the wall in front of him. The gunfire crashing against metal now audible to him, his surroundings now more visible to him. The two Marines standing at the top of the stairs leading down into the rest of the bunker, blocking the bullets spraying up from it, while the soldiers taking cover out of view from the enemies below throw more grenades past the Marines, flooding even more gas into the facility, prompting the Marines to rush forward down the stairs where they audibly slam into human flesh and bone. If those on the receiving end of that charge aren't dead, they certainly won't be getting back up anytime soon. With the way cleared, Match orders the squad to link up behind the power armor. Dragged out of his resting position by the obligation, Verirrt hurries down the staircase over the immobilized Chinese and lines up with the rest, creating a chain of 3 men behind each power armor suit, while the last 2 drag the Chinese up to the entrance with the others. As one singular organism, the group moves forward, the power-armored Marines at the front holding their machine guns at the hip, while the soldiers behind scan the hazy environment in greater detail, breaking off from the chain to search the bordering rooms, one of which happens to be the dorms. Empty now, but from the looks of it, there could be many more Chinese in the facility. So the men press forward deep into the depths of the facility, wherein a shallow metal grinding noise begins to stir. This isn't immediately cause for alarm. There could be a generator or other machinery in here, but when rounding the corner into what must be some sort of production area, the machines that line the room remain silent, yet the grinding persists. Alert but not yet alarmed, it's the sound of a voice, speaking Chinese, that sets the men into a reactionary defensive circle, where Match gives the silent signal for more gas to be deployed. The sounds of pins being pulled and grenades bouncing off the ground echoes through the room. Some throw them to the corners of the room, others like Verirrt simply drop them at their feet. They all have more than enough to waste. After the room is fully permeated by the gas, rather than the coughing that's to be expected, another voice rings through the silence, once again in Chinese. Despite the desperate attempt by everyone to locate even the shadow of a Chinese operative, the thick gas occupying the air could serve to hide someone, but then anyone in the gas would need a gas mask to breathe. Seeing to end the paranoia, Match announces with more certainty than he probably has in the matter that it must be a recording. Maybe he's just imagining it, or maybe it always was, but the memory of the voice now sounds more robotic in Verirt's mind. The group visibly relax their stances and weapon grips, if only slightly, and begin to return to their original formation. But this is the moment when the silence and the cloudy darkness is cut through by a laser bolt, striking one of the men in the chest, knocking him to the ground. In response, the machine guns from the T-60s light up the room as the bullets spray all around the area the laser bolt originated from. When the firing stops, Cross steps forward to inspect the remains of whatever they were shooting at. Bending down to the ground, he picks up something in one hand, holding it up high to show everyone else. A light blue cylinder with what looks like legs poking out of it and a red star in its center. Some sort of Chinese robot. No doubt there'll be more of them. The wounded man manages to get back to his feet with a number of pained groans before Match orders he be escorted topside. And just like that, the group's numbers drop by 2. In perfect time for more robotically spoken Chinese to echo from ahead. There's no point staying here with all this gas obstructing their view. The 4 remaining soldiers stack behind the Marines once again, speeding forward out of the gas, where more of the Chinese drones are lurking. It's a simple task now for the heavy machine guns of the T-60s to mow them down without need for the men behind them to leave their cover. The robotic pests may be numerous, but they are easily dispatched. Nothing more than sophisticated junk metal. Still, with each room they only seem to grow in number. Seeing how small and spider-like these communist drones are, Verirrt keeps a close watch behind the group, and for the better. Not once, but twice do these scuttling bots manage to find their way around the back of the squad. Thankfully they fall down with only a shot from his rifle, but they still got closer than they should have. Truthfully, it becomes more alarming when the drones are no longer present. Once their annoying voices are no longer heard through the next room, it becomes less comforting. The closed door ahead now could hold behind it nothing or more of the Chinese agents. there very likely is more in this alarmingly large facility. Verirrt, along with the other three behind the T-60s, sneak over to stack up against the walls beside the door. With everyone in position, the two Marines walk up to the door, guns readied, while the others hold their fingers in grenade pins. In perfect power-armored synchronization, the doors are kicked down with a flood of dust and metal fragments into the air. Amidst the fog of war, Verirrt leans one eye around the open door, his trigger finger and pin finger both itching to know what will be on the other side. But the millisecond the sight through the other side comes into view, it doesn't make sense. It can't. A T-45 suit with someone in it, holding a minigun, as it's spinning up. There's no time to react. All Verirrt can do is look back at the Marines, the moment of confusion causing their guns to lower, as he hears the minigun begin to fire and a hail of bullets rip into the faceplate of Cross, the red mist spraying out of the cracks of his helmet as his body carries out its last received command of shoving Alvarez to the side before the body and the suit crumble backward. And Alvarez, already tumbling over, can only hold out his arms to soften the crash to the ground, but at least he's out of the line of fire. Or at least, line of sight. As Verirtt's adrenaline-fueled mind thinks at breakneck speed, those miniguns use 5mm rounds, and he's not sure whether the wall they're hiding behind could stop that. Remembering the grenade in his hand, he winds up his arm to throw it. The gas may not work, but if he's lucky enough, this may be their only chance. Throwing his arm around the corner, transferring the kinetic energy into the grenade, he releases his grip and it propels out of his hand as a bullet tears through his wrist. Recoiling back around the corner with violent force, a pained yell escapes his mouth, flooding his gas mask. But it's not enough. Not enough to hide it. He heard it. The sound of the grenade being shredded into as with himself. The sound of its contents erupting outwards and the sound of the minigun cutting off. Now is his chance. Pushing through the excruciating pain, he drops to the ground and swings his rifle around the corner, wrapping the inner part of his elbow around the mag well, steadying it the best he can. He takes aim, through the lens of his mask, through the cloud of gas, at the suit of armor standing apart from its surroundings. He can just make out its breathing tubes. He pulls the trigger of his rifle, sending a shot right into the visor, doing nothing but grabbing the attention of the blinded operator. With the barrels of the minigun now spinning up, Verirrt allays the fear of death and readjusts his aim, when he hears the rifle of his comrade above him, firing down range. Pulling the attention of the T-45 away, Verirrt uses the split second to remove his elbow from the gun and rather use it to press the rifle hard against the door frame. He breathes in and takes the shot, rupturing the hose, then holding down the trigger of his rifle and spraying it into the T-45. Jolting back around the corner, he looks at Alvarez and tells him to go. Without even the hesitation that Verirrt has of this plan working, Alvarez charges into the room with the power of a freight train, and as the rest look in to see, he rams into the T-45, hand on its helmet and smashes it into the ground. Kicking it over, he rips the open hatch and yanks the pilot from the armor, only stopped from throwing him to death by the stern command from Match. The soldiers shine their lights at the pilot, definitely Chinese. The frantic coughing now erupting from him confirms he's still alive, but he's not the only one coughing now. 3 more people can be heard out of Verirtt's view. Match and the other 2 run off to defang them while Verirrt waits with Alvarez and begins to tourniquet his wounded arm. The other 3 return after a brief minute of physical altercation, all dragging a Chinese agent each, 2 of which are wearing lab coats. As Alvarez drops his own capture, the group gets to work hog-tying the communist agents. Once done, Match orders Alvarez to take the prisoners along with Verirrt topside for evac. Alvarez bends down in his T-60 and uses the large slack of rope connecting between the pairs of coughing prisoners and picks them up, 2 hanging from each hand like he's carrying a pair of shopping baskets. Verirrt, now clutching his wrist as tightly as he can manage, follows after the T-60, leaving the other 3 to clean up the rest. Coming out of the tube and into the fresh air, the soft ground, Verirrt can see the bird already parked along with the other 4 members of his squad, and the rest of the Chinese agents being loaded onto the bird. When he makes it to the high step of the bird's interior, Alvarez throws the red agents up in there before boosting Verirrt and the other wounded member of their squad into the fuselage. With the cargo secure, the bird lifts off, giving Verirrt a view over the city. He sees the riot team, both the soldiers and local police, and the large gathering of people now absent, only a few remaining, motionless on the ground.
I tried to be a good man. I thought there was a common good among men. But now, all I see is monsters. Hell on earth.
Chapter 20. The Devil's Bargain. On the roof of Fort White Springs' main building, Harper stands solemnly, feeling the icy wind blow against his uncovered face and watching as the communist spies, their heads bagged and their bodies bare, are thrown down into a line in front of him. He turns to Sergeant Match next to him to ask,
"And that's all of them?"
"Yes, sir, but it appears the standing order was to blend in with the populace. I reckon they're just the stragglers."
Harper gives the order for the bags to be removed from the prisoners' heads, and the last piece of protection against the cold is torn off their shivering bodies. Harper waits as the creatures look frantically around them, absorbing the situation, their utter hopelessness. Quickly, the oldest looking one of the group says something harshly in Chinese, an order perhaps. Harper acts quickly and aggressively grabs the oldest one by its neck, growling at it.
"What did you just say?"
He just looks at Harper blankly, and Harper slowly removes his hand and turns away. It doesn't matter. Modus is recording everything through the radio on his chest. Harper returns his view to the same communist agent, kneeling down to meet the pathetic creature, and he says calmly,
"You know who we are, what we are capable of, what we are willing to do. So why don't you tell us what we want to know before I lose patience? I know you can understand me."
Harper is met with nothing but silence.
"Here's what's going to happen. Either you tell me what I want to know, or I will butcher your men and decorate our walls with their peeled off skin. I will not rest until every last one of you communist fucks has a bullet in your skull. No matter where you run, where you hide, it will not save you. Of that I promise. Unless you tell me where the other agents are. Then you get to walk away."
This time the communist agent responds, not with words, but a spit to the face. Slowly Harper stands back up, speaking to the group of prisoners this time.
"Simple information, and I will guarantee you your lives. Anyone."
Once again he is met with silence. They can't say he didn't warn them. He draws his pistol and shoves the barrel against the temple of the oldest prisoner, watching in real time as the communist prepares for death, closing its eyes to see what must be memories of its life flashing through its mind as it takes its last breaths. A fool it is to think it should be so lucky. Harper pulls the pistol back from the fool's head and points it at the youngest prisoner, shooting it in the stomach. The pained screams of the communist filth are God's greatest symphony to his ears, made only the better by the mixed expressions of horror and animosity from the other prisoners. Harper waits patiently as the blood trickles from the youngest one's internals, pooling on the ground under the rest of the captives. When all of them are now kneeling in a deep puddle of blood, Harper takes one of the bags from one of his men and bends over the bleeding captive. Grabbing it by the face to check its condition, the captive is losing consciousness. He begins compacting and stuffing the bag into the gunshot wound, following it by pulling a stim pack from his coat and stabbing it into the abdomen of the communist. Harper steps back as the communist is shocked back to consciousness, convulsing violently. As the rest of the captives look beside them in horror and confusion of the situation they're in, Harper takes leave of his position, calmly walking away from the dying communist and placing himself at the very edge of the roof, overlooking the ground below, where he grabs the attention of a pair of his men and points to the bleeding captive.
"Throw that one off,"
he says, gesturing to the ground below him. Quickly they oblige, picking up the creature by the arms, walking over to the edge and throwing it from their standing. To the tune of the Star-Spangled Banner, that red bastard falls, flailing and screaming with the last of its seconds and energy. The body hits the ground with a sickening crunch, and Harper remarks loud enough for the captives to hear.
"Well, I'll be damned. I think I see a little movement still. Why don't you two bring him back up here?"
The two of his men that threw the communist off the roof quickly hurry down to grab the body, dragging it back up soon after. Thankfully it can still pass for being alive, if only just. When the body is dropped at Harper's feet, he looks at the prisoner coldly.
"I made a promise. I intend to keep it,"
he says as he lifts up his boot over the body beneath him and slams down with his heel, empowered by the spectres of 300 million dead, mercilessly crushing that which lies beneath.
"Strike out. Next batter up. Which one of you rats wants to die next?"
The rats quiver, but not the oldest one. That one finally speaks, this time in English.
"We'll all die before we tell you anything.
American pigs.
He spits with vicious malice.
Your country lies in ash because of us. Your families are dead because of us. Your children have no future because of us. You might as well kill us now. You have nothing to gain.
Such banal trickery is futile. Ending it so mercifully is far beneath him. So Harper decides to twist the metaphorical knife in further, by first laughing at his comment as convincingly as possible, before following it with,
"You don't know, do you?"
Harper can see their faces. The captives are taking the bait, hanging on his next words, now to simply thread the lie.
"Your little commie nukes didn't do as much damage as you think. You see, we've been talking with what's left of PACOM. After you decided to go nuclear, it took them mere months to wipe out the last of your pathetic leaders. It was only 2 weeks ago now that we received word that your beloved chairman was dead. The war's over, Red. You lost,"
Harper says, gambling on the spies knowing as little as him. Judging by the oldest one's visibly conflicted mind, seemingly going over every possible option in search of a concrete answer, Harper gathers he made the right play, as the spy can only desperately blurt out the words,
"You'll lie, American."
Harper kneels down victoriously.
"You lie to yourself, because deep down you know you are nothing. You are worth nothing. Your ideals, your beliefs, your life have amounted to nothing. When I sit upon a throne of death, its faces adorned with the last communist that would defile this sacred earth, then and only then may I find peace, reprieve from my lifelong conviction. So I ask of all before me, who will next join my mound of bones? Or will you take my offer of absolution and walk free?"
He holds his pistol out beside him for all the captives to see.
"Choose, or you all die, one by one, slower than the last."
At this moment, one of the communist spies blurts out the words,
"There are more of us here, more than you know."
The captive that spoke is one of the scientists. The other captive hisses something in Chinese, but Harper immediately smashes his boot into the disruptive one.
"Shut up!"
He closes into the one betraying their secrets, eagerly asking it more.
"Where are these others? Tell me."
"We don't know. None of us know each other's location."
Snake. He continues his questioning.
"Where did you find that power armor?"
"At the airfield. It was abandoned."
"What was your primary objective here?"
"To locate and disable your missile silos."
Harper stands back upright.
"Very well. You may leave,"
he says before directing 2 of his men to reclothe and release the spy, after which he redirects his attention to the remaining 3 of his prisoners, asking one final time,
"Will there be any other admissions before the final verdict is passed?"
He waits, but receives no response, only cold, hateful stares.
"So be it then. Take them down for further interrogation,"
he orders the rest of his men, only for Sergeant Match to come up to him when all the others have left.
"Sir, is it wise to let one of them leave?"
"It's all right, Sergeant. Each one of them was injected with a tracking chip when they arrived here. I made a promise. I intend to keep it."
This has gone too far, Melody. You heard what happened in Morgantown. They were students, Melody. Just scared kids and they opened fire on them. Can you believe Chief Mayfield is in support of this? We have to get the emergency government to do something.